The challenge is if you recognize that they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you, and so everything you do post-capture is going to dictate and determine how that person is going to come back to you, how loyal they're going to be to you. And I think, I don't know about you, Brad, but I think there's a much simpler way to think about marketing and branding that attracts customers than what agents are being sold today in today's market. We've seen the advice on this. Post 6 times a week, do
these times a day.
These times, I do not give a shit about the algorithm. I do not optimize for the algorithm at all. And this is my personal point of view on this. I optimize for the person, because the algorithm is not going to buy anything from me.
Yeah.
It's the people who see my content are the ones who are going to
optimize for the human, for the agent.
I mean, this is, and I'll tell you right now. So if I was an agent, let's say tomorrow I got my real estate license.
Yes.
And I was on your team. First thing I would do, the market that we're in, this may be as good as it's going to get. And what we're seeing is agents are now having to adjust and having to sort of, I don't know if buckle down's the right word, but they're having to put themselves in a position where, okay, I now have to have a plan. Because the market's not going to lift me up. I'm going to have a plan to survive in this market. And so this is where, I think this is where it gets exciting. I know this is an opinion that not a lot of people share, but I think there's never been a better time to be a great agent than it is right now. What is the right strategy when the market shifts? What should be your posture? What should be your plan? What should be the things that you do differently? And what they found was businesses that were ultra aggressive, that were foot on the gas as if, there was cheap capital and, that the streets were paved with gold, just like in the 2020 market, those businesses failed at a much higher rate because they were not addressing the reality. Now, on the flip side, the businesses that went into hibernation mode, many of them did survive. But when the market returned, they grew at a much slower pace. A bear does not grow stronger when it hibernates, right?
Yeah.
It just survives. Yeah. And so what they found was the right strategy was a healthy balance of offense and defense, which is aggressively pursuing opportunities that helped you expand into new markets, grow the business, meanwhile being very pragmatic, very thoughtful about how you spend your time, how you spend your money, finding that balance, that constant turning of the dials. Those companies, not only did they do better during the time of disruption, but when they came out of it, they grew at a much faster clip. And so right now what I'm seeing is one of two options, which is I'm seeing number one, agents who are just flat out checking out. They're like, you know what, I'm gonna kind of go back to doing, if I get a deal here or there, they're just accepting it, right? Yeah. Jim Collins wrote the book Good to Great.
Yes,
but
great book.
My favorite book that I've read from him, and it's one that's not, people don't really know about it, it's not that popular, but I think it's his best book, and it's maybe my favorite title. It's called How the Mighty Fall. And it's and one of the he has these 5 stages of decline. And one of the stories talks about this idea of capitulation, which is you just sort of accept, to your point, accept your fate. Right now, a lot of agents don't realize there is a door 3. There is another path where no, you can be aggressive during these downturns. And I would say there's stories about this. And you mentioned recession. You mentioned you started your business in a recession. Just Google it. How many businesses that are thriving businesses today started in a recession? Google, right? Microsoft, Tesla. You go down to the top, the top 25 companies in the S&P. 75% were started during a recession. So the point is there are opportunities in these moments if you're just willing to kind of open your mind up to it. Brand is shorthand for trust, as Steve Jobs would say. Yeah. Which is, it's a busy world out there. It's a noisy world out there. We have lots of options. And so people tend to think that we want more choice. And there's the famous TED Talk by Barry Schwartz, which is the paradox of choice, how more choice leads to more indecision and more, let's say, less happiness as an example. What people don't realize about marketing, and it's probably the biggest mistake people make about marketing, and I don't want to use the word marketing and branding interchangeably, but just for the context of this podcast, we'll talk about marketing. Marketing is the beginning of the consumer journey, not the end. So however someone comes across your brand, whether it's they watch a video and they subscribe, or they fill out a form on your website, or they get an email from you, or they see a postcard they get in the mail, or they see one of your lawn signs, this is the beginning of the consumer journey. And so what happens is, I see this happen every day in real estate, is that let's say you generate a lead from a pay-per-click ad on Google. they're somehow surprised when that person is not overly receptive to having a conversation with you, right? Like, and so
You were just on our website.
you were just on our website. Like obviously you want to work with us. And the challenge is that like, if you recognize that they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. And so everything you do post capture is going to dictate and determine how that person is going to come back to you, how loyal they're going to be to you as an example. And so I think from a marketing perspective, what agents have to understand, people always try to get very clever with this idea of building like the perfect marketing funnel. I've been in marketing now for 20 years. There is no marketing funnel. I mean, the consumer journey is so random, so unpredictable, so chaotic. And the challenge is, as consumers, we have so many options that we don't even really fully understand why we buy. The best thing you can do is get as many shots on goal as you can.
Yeah.
Getting in front of more people, right? More frequently with better content that adds more value. Like that is the only real predictable way for any business to try to attract new customers. And what I see is really clever marketers try to manufacture this. They try to like create this perfect automated funnel. And like, that's just not how we buy. That's not how we make decisions. And so I think right now in real estate, what really bothers me about real estate marketing and specifically is we make it so complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, we make it so insanely, and as a result, Brad, it pushes agents away from doing it. And I think, I don't know about you, Brad, but I think there's a much simpler way to think about marketing and branding that attracts customers than what agents are being sold today in today's market. The thing that I think about is this idea of can I, should I, how do I? As an example, right now, when we're recording this podcast, interest rates in Canada are what right now for the average consumer?
Yeah, right around that 5.5 or so.
Okay, 5.5. And for my American friends who are going to watch this podcast, they have very strange rules in Canada around mortgages where they're not long-term mortgages, they're short-term. You have to refinance.
Yeah, this is a 5-year term.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then you have to refinance whatever the rate
Every
are.
5 years.
Yeah. And so we would love 5% interest rates, but in Canada, that's actually high. The question is for consumers is, can I afford to buy a house when interest rates are 5.5%? And right now, if your marketing isn't answering a question like that, then they're going to, in many ways, are going to struggle to understand what value you're going to bring. And so this idea of, okay, can I buy a house if all I have is a 10% down payment? Can I afford to live in the house if my insurance and my taxes and my cost of living are X or Y or Z? And so when you think about the consumer journey, there's a sort of like thought, the initial thought is, can I even do this thing I'm trying to do? Is it even possible for me to achieve this? These are the questions that people are answering. So sure, if you get in front of them with all this about how the market's great and everything that's happening, you're not answering the fundamental question that they're asking themselves at the kitchen table is, can I actually do this? The challenge right now for a lot of agents is they go for the views, they go for the likes, they go for the comments.
Yeah.
Listen, it's easy to get addicted to that. To that validation. Like I'm guilty of it as well, right? But what we should be looking for, what we should be optimizing for is impact.
Speaking of your personal brand though, just for a quick aside, you have built, I think, one of the coolest pieces of copy to just sort of describe who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it's in your Instagram profile where you said like, your goal is to be the most useful man in real estate. Is that?
Yeah. This is in brand strategy, they have a concept called like your North Star.
Yeah.
Which is, and so really good brands, Microsoft famously was put a computer on every desk. Google's was, organize the world's information. Behind every great brand, there's sort of this, call it through line that exists. Like, why does this company exist? And so all the decisions they make are through the lens of that North Star. So when, I got to give a shout out to Annette Torres, who was my social media manager at the time. I was on Instagram for 7-8 years. I was not interested in it. I was like, listen, I run this business. I got other things to do. This is not that important to me, what I'm doing. And she's like, listen, you need to be more active. You're the face of the company. You're in marketing. Like if you're not marketing, then what credibility do you have? I said, listen, I'll do this. I'll get out there and I'll be more active on social media, but we're gonna make one promise, which is I am only putting out shit that is going to be useful to people. Yeah. I'm not posting pictures of me on planes. I'm not sharing pictures of me, what restaurants I'm going to, because the conventional wisdom at the time is like, give them that exposure to your life because they'll fall in love with you. The reason why people like me is my utility. It's not my personality. It's not if I'm charming. Like, they like me because of the things that I do. And I've never been confused by that. So when I told her, I said, listen, I'll do this, but my mission is going to be to be the most useful person to follow in real estate. It took me probably about 12 months, maybe 18 months to get 10,000 followers. It took me 6 months to get 20,000 followers. It took me 3 months to get to 30,000 followers. And now we're starting to add like 5 to 10,000 followers every kind of 90 days or so now.
Wow.
And so I'm really surprised how much more impactful it is. And what's actually interesting on this mission is I don't post that much. We've seen the advice on this. Post 6 times a week. Do
these times a day.
These times, I do not give a shit about the algorithm. I do not optimize for the algorithm at all. And this is my personal point of view on this. I optimize for the person because the algorithm is not going to buy anything from me.
Yeah.
It's the people who see my content are the ones who are
So
going
you
to
optimize for the human, for the agent.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, in marketing, there's a part of marketing right now that's going to get eviscerated. And people who are listening to this podcast are either going to agree with me or they're going to immediately start railing me in the comments. But we've seen this in marketing. Like, SEO has ruined marketing for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, hey, what's a blueberry muffin recipe? You have to scroll through the history of blueberry muffins just to get to where the ingredients are.
Yeah.
Because most SEO experts are optimizing for the search engines to crawl it.
Yeah.
We're now seeing, as things are now shifting, we're now seeing this world where like people are just using AI and AI is doing the searching for them and just consolidating the information. And I think it's a great analogy. Like, that's your job as a marketer. Your job is to go out there, find all this information, consolidate it and condense it in a way that's easy for people to understand so they can make an informed decision. So for my personal brand, I've always said, like, I want to make it, I want to cut through the noise, give people advice, guidance, inspiration, so they can go out there and get a customer. Like, that's all. That's everything I do is through that North Star, which makes it easy for me to decide what do I post about and what do I not post about. So if I was an agent, let's say tomorrow I got my real estate license,
yes,
and I was on your team, first thing I would do is I'd recognize that real estate is a function of how well known you are in your local area. Absolutely. And so I would look for, there's an expression in business called be a barnacle on a whale. I would find built-in distribution channels where there's already a network that exists, and I can tap into that network to grow my brand recognition, where I can grow my exposure, where I can make new connections. Now, as an entrepreneur, the thing that I would do, and this is the mistake I made early, is I hired, when I first built Curator with my partners, we hired only junior people. And experienced entrepreneurs do the exact opposite. The first hires, they hire our experienced people who then, build the teams around them. The first role I would hire what I refer to as a community manager. In this role, all they do is they say, Nextdoor, Facebook groups, local, BNIs, all they do is identify rooms that I need to be in, connections I need to make. They're active on social media. They're connecting with consumers. And they're just, hey, Jimmy, this person's looking for a plumber. And I would say, here's their number. I'd reach out and make a connection. Hey, Jimmy, there's an event going on in a local area supporting some local charity. I'm showing up. I'm shaking hands. I'm kissing babies.
This is good.
All this person does all day long is make sure that I'm in the right rooms at the right time. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm building relationships from day one, but I'm not the one who is sourcing the relationships. I'm the one who's making the relationship. If I'm an agent on the McCallum groups, if I'm an agent on your team, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start building my sort of team of individuals around me. So I got my community manager. As I start building relationships, closing deals, what's the first thing that we do? We ignore our SOI, right?
Yeah.
If I helped somebody 3 months ago, 6 months ago, am I really staying in touch with that individual?
Yeah.
And so what a lot of people do in real estate, and we've done this too, is you hire an ISA and they call leads, they circle dial for you, they call your PPC leads. I would do an ISA for my SOI. Which is after, so this person's only job is to manage post-transaction. So when a deal closes, this person is like, they're a care bear. They're hey, it's Bob checking in with, you. I know it's been 3 months since you bought the house. How's it going? How are you? Like, this person is the exact opposite of a salesperson. This person, I'm not sure where they'd be on a disc profile, but this is a person that loves human beings and just making sure we maintain that connection. I would measure the success of that role based on the number of repeat customers I get and the number of referrals I generate. It'd be an easy line of tracking. Am I getting more referrals because of my Care Bear who's managing my SOI? So right out of the gates, if you can imagine, at this point, again, I now have 2 employees, okay, as a solo agent. So I got to get on my horse. I got my community manager who's on Nextdoor, who's on Facebook groups, who is on social media, interacting with people. They're getting me in the rooms. I'm building my relationships. Then on the back end of it, I've got my, call it ISA for my SOI, who's making sure that nobody falls through the cracks. And so those 2 roles around me put me in a position where I'm always creating new relationships and maintaining existing ones. Yeah. The problem is a lot of agents who are watching this right now don't have anybody to support that, right? And they're so focused on just new customers, or they're so focused on, let's say, marketing. They had this leaky bucket. Yeah. And all we got to do is pour more water into it. No. Fix the bucket first.
Yes. If you're looking for stuff like this, if this is exciting to you, my buddy Jimmy and I created a new company. It's called listingleads.com. If you have not gone to listingleads.com, absolutely check it out today. We drop new marketing campaigns every single month for all of our subscribers. And the second you sign up, you have 59 different proven campaigns you can already run with. So absolutely check out listingleads.com.